Alright, now we're going to demonstrate how to install WebGLStudio Kit on your computer using VirtualBox. So, I have the archive, which you will download, but I have locally here, and I'll copy it to my virtual machine VirtualBox VMs folder. Then I'll extract it. Okay, now I have a folder called WebGLStudio Kit on my folder, and under the README, you'll discover some things that you probably want to take note of. For example, for security's sake, you'll want to change your SQL root password from Fleeble using phpMyAdmin or Euro. You could do it with the command line if you want. And then there's also a WebGLStudio user, which also has a username, password of Fleeble. You want to change that probably. And then there's also information about how to get to the editor and the file server in this README, but we'll just ignore this for now. Okay, so go to VirtualBox, go to Machine, Add, navigate to your WebGLStudio Kit folder, find WebGLStudio Kit.vbox, and open it. Now select the WebGLStudio Kit VirtualBox in the left pane, and select Start. WebGLStudio is tricky to install from scratch because you need LAMP installed and then you need phpMyAdmin installed. Well, you don't need to, but it really helps. You'll also need to install their the author's file server, which is tricky. The default options don't make a lot of sense, and I had to edit those by hand to make it work. So what you'll want to do is go boot into System Installer. Okay, now once we're in the system install, from the system back utility, it'll ask you for your full name for your user. In this case, I'm just going to call myself WebGLStudio, and new username for login, WebGLStudio, user account password. I'll just stay to the old one, FLIEBLE, but you can choose anything you want. Root password the same. We're not interested in security at the moment. FLIEBLE, hostname WebGLStudio. WebGLStudio, then go to next. Now select the second item on the list. Go to mount point. We want to do root. File system, X4 is fine. Then press the arrow button. Then select next. Then go into start. And now it will install. We'll accelerate this video for your viewing so you don't have to wait on this. Okay, it says the system install is completed. And we'll go ahead and reboot. It'll ask you to hit the enter button to restart. Okay, now just have to enter the password, which is Fleeble, FLIEBLE. And then after a while it'll load. Helps to click the screen a little bit. I think it's like that somehow. Okay, great. Now we have a desktop. So we're not going to use the editor inside the virtual machine. There's no need to do that. It's slow in there, and this is better. If we just go over here to the console window, type in ifconfig, we will get our local address. The INET address is 192.168.0.172. Copy, paste, and then type in editor, and there it is. This is the server. This is running off of VirtualBox, and now we're in WebGLStudio. All we have to do is connect to the server. So go to Drive Server. It says you must be logged in. So we're going to log in with the example account I have, which is called username Scott. password Fleble, F-L-I-E-B-L-E, login. And we'll just do a little example scene here. If you go over to scene, and then to project, and then to load, there are 3 scenes here. Test doesn't do anything. WebGL4 is a scene. We'll open that. Are you sure? Yes. Now under the player, if we just go to click on player and hit play, it'll show the output of the scene. We can also do this. We can also say stop and go to project test, and it'll show the window separate. And it has a very minimal GUI here. It says go to Boeing scene. That might look somewhat familiar to the old timers out there. Click on the Boeing Click Me button and it rotates. Click on the logo scene, it goes back to the logo. And there's a very basic example multi-scene project. Just a quick tour here. One thing to keep in mind is that this is very much beta software, so there may be some showstoppers during the way of your development using the system, but I've at least provided you with a complete system in which you can use to test this for your purposes to see if it'll work for you. One thing to keep in mind is that the scripts aren't saving automatically anymore. Sometimes script files don't work the way that you would think they're supposed to. Like if you change a script in a script file and save the file, it should update in the player, but for some reason it's just not doing that. So there's another alternative way of entering scripts, and that is with, well, let's go back to the other project because I just did this recently. So go to the Boeing project. Okay, now go to the Boeing ball, and there's a script. It says unnamed script. And this is unlike a script file. There's actually 2 kinds of components. You can say create new script from file, and you can create a new script. Unfortunately, script from file is seemingly unreliable because you'll have a script file that's executing by your player, but you make changes to the script file and save the file, and it doesn't seem to show up changed in the editor, or in the player, I mean. So if you go to create new script, then it's stuffed somewhere in the JSON. I don't know how it works, but the code here is fairly reliable. So let me just give you a little explanation of how the code in this is written, and maybe it'll help you to learn how to do some of this stuff yourself, because the documentation for the editor isn't very good yet. So this has, like, similar to Unity, there is a start and an update function that's somehow built into the behavior system. So if you go to this on start, what happens is that we get a reference to the GUI, which is actually just HTML, and it's called GUI root, and it comes from this object ls.gui.getRoot, and then we can insert our own HTML into that GUI root. In this case, it's really basic. It's just a button with an on-click handler that says enable Boeing, and then enable Boeing runs this function just like you'd expect in JavaScript. And then over here there's another button that says go to logo scene, and it got a function called go to WebGL scene. Under WebGL scene, go to WebGL scene, it loads a scene from resources, and the scene has a structure that's familiar throughout the program, where it says the name of the scene, what it is a scene, and then .json, which is the contents of the scene, the file that the scene is. So then the GUI is changed a little bit upon clicking of the button to reflect the new scene that it's going to be in, and then on update, if you say enable Boeing, this property here, var go rotate, normally off. When you press the button, it is not off or not on, depending on what it is. And then down here on update, if go rotate is on, then apply a rotational transform. Something to know is that in order to get to things like rotations and transforms and movements and stuff, you want to go under node.transform. And then another strange thing about the program is that normally when you think of things of like rotation values and movement and positions, you think of things like vector 3's. Well, it does have vector 3's, but they're really just arrays. For an example, this requires a vector 3 for the direction of the rotation application on that node. So like 1 is the value of how much to rotate, and then this 3-part number 0, comma 1, comma 0 is a vector 3 that determines the way it rotates. And it's not like, I tried all kinds of different things. I really got hung up on this for a while. I tried stuff like var myVec equals new vector, no, that won't work. Vector 3, 0, comma 1, comma 0. And no, that doesn't work. It fails in all kinds of weird ways. It just does not work. What you want to do is go by it. Think of it like an array of 3 numbers. And if you want to add vectors together, there's probably a smart way of doing this. I just don't know what that way is. So I made my own function. So I wanted to add 2 vectors together, vector 1, vector 2. And then I just simply say, it's just reading it from an array. Value 0 is x, value 1 is y, value 2 is z. And then just add them up like that, just, really crude-like. I don't know if that's the way you're supposed to do it or not. I kind of doubt that it is. But this is just the way I just basically did a very simple vector addition, which actually I ended up not using the function in this example. So that's all there is to it. There is an ability to make property variables, but I haven't figured out how exactly they work yet. Something I'm doing with them is wrong. To play back audio, I tried to import my audio files directly into the importer. The way you work, import it into the server directly. So like what I would do is I would say import file, and then it would come up with a dialog. Then I would select my sound. Here's the sound, and well, I can't get it to play because I can't get an access to the direct path. For some reason, I lack the knowledge to extract the actual path. I can get the resource path in the folder, but I can't get it from the IP address or domain name out. So I can't link to it correctly. So for this example, all I did was I copied this to one of my servers online, and then under scene script, the file location is actually on a web server. All I have to do is go paste it in, and boing, there's the sound. So to play the sound, all I do is create a new audio object and then play it. Audio equals new audio URL, play. There you go. There you got audio. All the GUI stuff is done in HTML. And there's other idiosyncrasies to this, but I think this is good enough to get you started. Just knowing how to transform position was a struggle at first because there was simply no Stack Overflow for getting simple questions answered like that. So hopefully you can learn from this. You can, if you compile the compiler sometimes gives you clues when you make a mistake, but oftentimes it's kind of unforgiving. It doesn't really tell you what line is messed up. It just simply says it just doesn't work, and you have to go into the JavaScript debugger to find what's wrong. Hopefully that can be improved in future editions. So anyway, let me just give you a quick tour of the file system. So under the URL, you want to type in, like it says, editor / we'll just type in file server. And this brings us into the file server interface that's behind the file structure in your projects. So you can do things like you can make a new folder. I'm going to call this my super boing, and then it makes a folder called super boing, and you can fill it with files. It's actually a little bit easier to delete and change files from the editor instead of the file server. Now, if you want to create a new user, you would just simply log out, and we'll just make a new account. We'll call this Mutt, and give it a password of Mutt, and a mail of anything because it doesn't check the mail yet. You can set it to only accept new users on your through an email notification, but I don't have that turned on. It's in the config file in the include folder under file server. So just type in anything mutt. This isn't a real address, by the way. Mutt.org. Okay, so there we go. Mutt username. Create. Wrong user. What do you mean wrong username? Okay. Wrong username. Well, that's curious, isn't it? What do you mean wrong username? Okay, Bobby. How about that? Is that a wrong username? Bobby. Create. Alright, likes Bobby. Doesn't like Mutt for some reason. I don't know why. It's prejudiced against Mutt. How can I say? So under Bobby unit, you'll see it says 4.8 megabytes out of whatever. Well, you'll always want to increase this. I don't care who you are. 4.8 megabytes isn't enough to do anything. So make it like, whatever you like, 200 megabytes, save. Now you can store some real files in there. So if you go over to editor and then go to drive Bobby, it already knows me. Isn't that cool? So to upload a file, so go to import file, and we're going to import this from my hard drive. Under under desktop, I have a folder called Venus, and then under here we'll call. I'm going to get the Venus object right now. Import and insert it. Okay, there we go. We have a white ball. Whee! That's really exciting. All right, so we want to go back to drive and give it a texture. Now here's the cool thing. If the texture name is the same as the reference in the file, it should just apply it automatically. Watch this. And then in this case, the Venus clouds. There we go. Import and insert. See? Isn't that cool? Look at that. It just automatically applied the texture. So there you go. I'm going to save this scene. I'm going to say save scene, save. Oh wait, project. It should say scene, but if you just simply say save in server, and then call this Venus, you must choose a folder. Yeah, this is. It forces you to choose a folder for some reason. I don't know why. Why doesn't it save in the base directory? I don't know. It's just the way it is. So don't get caught up on that. So now we're going to go to reset all. And now just to prove that the scene was actually in there. In fact, I'm going to double prove it, and I'm going to refresh the URL and load the editor over again. I'm going to go to File, Load, from Server, Venus, and then ta-da! Now we can just go to Project Test. Ta-da! See? And now isn't that much nicer than having to compile with Unity? I mean, it's like it's a direct. It's 100% WYSIWYG. I mean, what you play it in the editor inside of Unity, and then you hope that it works in WebGL, on the export. It might not. You never know. But the great thing about WebGLStudio and similar editors to it is that the publishing is instant. Here's another thing you should probably be aware of is you can go to Project, Publish. Oh wait, I'm sorry. We don't want that. We want to go to File, Export, to Zip, include player. And there's a little trick I think you should know about. Okay, 3 megabytes. We'll open with Archive Utility. If we open it in Firefox, what's going to happen? I have no idea, really. What's going to happen with Firefox? Hey, it worked! Sometimes it didn't work. What would happen is I would, after loading my planet or my object, and then saving the scene, and then exporting it to this this player thing, sometimes it would not include the objects unless I updated them in the editor. Like if I went over to Drive, and if I wasn't getting Venus to update or to save in my project, one thing you could do would be to load it and then go to update preview, and then it would just work. But for some reason in this case, it didn't matter. It just worked anyway. So there is your example. So I'm going to go to save in server. Okay, good. And that's it. That is the completion of this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope there's much more to learn. I hope we can work together to learn more about this fantastic new development environment, which has been provided to us for free with the MIT license. You can do anything you want with this thing. That's the greatest thing. It's like it was made by a very intelligent person, as you can tell from the way the interface is laid out. It's still very early. It doesn't have a big following. I hope that someday that people will embrace this new system because it is pretty well thought out. It has everything that you would want in a authoring project for multimedia. For example, it has behavioral properties. It has file management, easy publishing. It has a fairly good GUI. Check this out. It has this really nice cube that you can, it works similar to Unity, and that you can, like, let's say you want to go to the X view, you just click on it, go to the -Z, click on that. I mean, that's really slick, really nice interface. There's a lot of things it does. I haven't even scratched the surface of what this thing can do, but evidently, see all these little dots here? All this stuff can be animated through a graph, and the graph can be controlled through script, which would be immensely powerful. Now, other things this thing can do, which is pretty amazing in my opinion, is it has render to texture. So it does all your fancy Unity Pro stuff with render to texture. It has a amazing graph editor. It's a node-based editor. It can do things like special effects, input, and other things. It's pretty impressive. I would give that a look into too. Just some other things here. Node. Okay, Node 1, that's a stupid name. Let's call this Venus. Oops, didn't spell it right. Venus. Mesh render. It has a lot of very useful components. For example, it has colliders, cloners, graph components. So that's pretty advanced stuff. It has a lot of stuff here. Scripts from file. Unfortunately, script from file seem to be broken at the moment. Skin deformer, some sort of bone system of some kind. Skybox, that's how I made an environment for my Chrome logo, and sprites, and all this. three.js. Now that is interesting. What does this do? I don't know. Can you just throw it? Oh, three.js code. Okay. This dot start dot render dot update. Render da, da, da. Use root. So, looky here. It may be possible to leverage three.js source code in your WebGLStudio projects. If that is the case, this thing could explode on the scene if you don't believe it. So, that is basically it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned from some of it. I hope you contribute to the WebGLStudio community. It's very small right now, but I think it could really help. I think you could really help make it a more viable platform. It's a viable platform now. All we need now is man knowledge, the knowledge of how to control all these things, to narrow down bugs and so on. The developer is extremely talented and committed to make this work. So I hope you enjoyed my presentation. Have a good day.